Flip Chicago Red is deciding to speak out against Mayor Brandon Johnson. So let's go ahead and play this video.
I'm addressing this lowlife Mohawk land mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. And also make sure when you think of everything I'm saying, make sure you keep Prisker in mind because he's a lowlife as well. So Brandon Johnson think that he can keep telling us a lie long enough that we are going to believe it. He want us to believe that crime is down in Chicago. Meanwhile, just this very weekend, 20 people got shot and we had 3 fatalities. We have a 20-year-old woman shot in the head and killed on the south side of Chicago. We have a 32-year-old man shot in Bucktown. We also, at a business on 63rd Street, West Woodlawn area, we had 4 people shot, a 25-year-old, a 31-year-old, he died, and a 40-year-old, and the youngest one is a 6-year-old. We also had a guy that I knew personally, went to school with my kids, who got shot and killed Friday on his birthday. So Brandon Johnson wants you to believe that crime is down. You don't have to keep telling us crime is down. When crime is down, guess what? The people who don't have the 150 to 250 police detail that you and your family have, we'll know it. We will know that. We would tell you that crime is down in our communities because we would be able to feel it and know that we are safe. We'll feel that we're safe in our communities. But right now, you can't keep telling us that crime is down when we know it's not down. Also, don't let Brandon Johnson and Prisker lie to you. Right now, Brandon Johnson is on a tour pandering to Black Chicago, acting like he's listening to the people and he want to hear what you have to say. You know why he can't do whatever you tell him that you need him to do? Because he has sold his soul to the Democratic Party. He's a puppet. And right now, the Democratic Party agenda is illegals and pushing trans to our kids and destroying America. This is what we are telling him and been telling him. We want to end sanctuary cities.
Now, here's something that I want to pause here for a second. Now, look. Oops. Let me pause here for a second. Sorry about that. This was my major concern when the sanctuary cities were first brought up during Trump's first term, way back 2017, 2018. Okay. On paper, it sounded good. Okay. And there's a reason why there's a migration crisis. It's because of decades of the U.S. being involved in Central and South America, causing, again, instability, political instability, economic instability. Never asked the CIA its connection with El Chapo for that white booger sugar. Never asked that, my lovelies, but here we are. And yet it is a sign of the times. And my issue is that I was worried that this was going to lead to a powder keg that was going to explode, was causing further divisions in Chicago. And Chicago is a hyper-segregated city. So if you do live in this city, you know what I'm talking about. And the issue right now is that a lot of resources were going to these sanctuary shelters. And the thing is, some of these sanctuary shelters were built in communities without the residents being notified. One shelter was not going to be built, and thankfully it was not built because they were going to build it on a Superfund site. Was it a Superfund site? Well, that is not fun. I said fund, F-U-N-D, which means there's chemicals and toxic waste and toxic metals there that would get the people sick. And the residents of that community were told, the city of Chicago, don't do that, please. People will die. Plus, hey, don't build a sanctuary shelter without informing us. There was never a plan. All the sanctuary city plan was, especially under Lightfoot and even under Mayor Brandon Johnson, was feel-good points to make latte-drinking liberals feel good about themselves against Donald Trump. All what it's done now is cause further anxiety, stress, and resentment in a city that's already heavily divided. Talk to Jimmy Dore about Chicago and the hypersegregation. He'll know. He'll tell you. I'll tell it to you too. Chicago's got that bloody history. It's not this paradise. It never was. But it could be. And it can be.
We want crime. We want these people who are committing these crimes to be prosecuted. We don't want them to be soft on crime. We want our community safe. We want to be able our transportations and the L and things safe. We want these illegal aliens out of our communities. We want taxes down. This is what we are telling him we wanted. So if you really want to hear from what the people are telling you, we've been screaming this from the rooftop. This is what we want. But you know what? He can't do it. That's why he can't do it, because it's not the Democratic Party agenda. He cannot go against that party that he sold his soul to and got paid to do their bidding. He cannot go against it. That's why he cannot do what we're asking him to do. If he wants to hear from us, we made it plain. We made it clear of the things that we wanted in our communities and in every community in Chicago. But he's not listening to that because he can't fulfill that, because he's already sold his soul to the devil, which is the Democratic Party and their agenda. So, Brandon Johnson, you can go around touring everywhere you want to tour, and you can go around pandering to the black people. But let me tell you this, until you get up there and do a press conference and say, right now, today, I'm ending sanctuary cities. Right now, today, I'm working with ICE, and we are going to get these illegal aliens up out of our community. Until you say, I'm going to stop stealing your money, I'm going to be transparent and show that I have not been stealing you all's money or the disgraced 50 aldermen, until you're able to be transparent and real about what's really going on and want to have a real conversation with the people in Chicago when we are telling you what's happening in our community and what we need to change our community. Until you're able to do those things, then we don't want to hear what you have to say. All it is smoke and mirrors. All you doing is putting on a pony show, and we're done with it. So we know you can't fulfill it, because we know you can't go against your Satan, the Democratic Party that you're bought and paid for by. And since you can't go against that, get out of our faces. This goes for you and Prisker. Get out of our faces, and we're going to show you come election time that all you Democrats are going to be out of here, because we're paying attention to policies. And your policies do not work for the American citizens, for the working class citizens. It doesn't work for Chicago. All of your policies are anti-Chicago. You all put Americans last, and you put everybody else first, and you tax us to oblivion. We're done with that. You can go about your business. It's over for you all. All right.
Now, I know there are some things that obviously there's a lot in my audience who don't agree with her about, but let me just tell you something about the tax thing here. Yeah, no, it's really bad. It's really bad here for Chicagoans. Now, I know there's a couple people saying, I know Flex Diggs, I think you had some words to say to me about Chicago being hyper segregated. It's the truth about our city. I think there's, again, I think the city was designed that way. If you look at it, and it's been engraved in our soul a little bit. But when you look at overall how every single Chicagoan's being screwed over, yes, we do need to unite. And unfortunately, this is my controversial statement here. The sanctuary shelters have got to go. I am so sorry. Okay, I don't want to see people get hurt, but there was never a plan. And when me and Daniel confronted activists and organizers, and yes, even candidates who are running for office about, hey, what happens if this goes south, or what happens if the card is flipped and things don't go well, we were met with word salads. They turned away from us. Or my favorite, the Coca-Cola Classic, oh, well, you guys are just racist. Which, no, we were asking a legit question like, hey, there's some danger with this. There's a problem that could happen. And it's so great to see all these activists and organizers now back in the streets again. So good to see all of you. But unfortunately, the sanctuary city plan failed miserably. There was never a plan. I had a good friend of the show, Jamal Green, who is a very vocal advocate against the sanctuary shelters, call out the fact, not because it's going to cause any problems, but for the fact that some of these shelters weren't safe to shelter in. All right. So there was never a plan. There was never a plan. And this happened during the ending days of Emmanuel's administration, Lightfoot's administration, and now under Brandon Johnson's administration. And Chicago is now being heavily taxed. And I've had a lot of viewers reach out to me about the taxation in Illinois and in Chicago. If it remains at this current pace, Chicago will end up like Detroit, or either that completely abandoned. And maybe that's the plan, to kick people out of Chicago. We're being gentrified. We're being replaced. We're being kicked out. Communities that have had generations of families living in them for years being displaced, removed. You know, what makes Chicago great, the beating heart of Chicago, is not just the tall buildings, the landmarks, museums, or cultural areas of significance. No, the beating heart is the generations of families that have lived here. My great-grandfather was born here. My grandfather, born here. My mother, born here. And yours truly, born and raised, Chicagoans through and through. Our roots go deep. But unfortunately, regrettably, Mayor Brandon Johnson's administration has been turning a blind eye to the corruption and to the crime and the abuse of power that's been happening here. And in my opinion, he is going to be a one-term mayor, in my opinion. I want to pull up this article here, which is also going to shine a light on overall just how screwed Mayor Brandon Johnson is. And Flip Chicago Red could be a factor to play in overall what's happening. City Hall wrapped up 2024 with a zero balance in its operating checkbook. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't say that clear enough. Sometimes English is not my first language. With a zero balance in its operating checkbook, two factors outside of the city's control explained the situation. A $165 million reduction in Chicago's share in revenues from the personal property replacement tax and a disputed $175 million pension payment for non-teaching school employees. Chicago closes books with an unassigned balance of zero for the first time in recent memory, in part of because Chicago Public Schools failed to reimburse the city for $175 million pension payment for a non-teaching school employees. At the end of 2023, the unassigned balance, not yet dedicated for a specific purpose, was $226.6 million, even after Johnson followed his predecessor, Lori Lightfoot, led by devoting $306.6 million to a pension advance that exceeded Chicago's statutory requirement. But a year later, the consumer equivalent of the city's operating checkbook was totally depleted, and the city's overall deficit was $161 million. Chief Financial Officer Jill Drowowski cited two factors outside the city's control for the unprecedented decision. Oh my goodness, $165 million reduction in Chicago's share of revenue? You know what? Hey, folks, Heartlands Media might have to move out. Might move to the great state of Indiana. Mayor Brandon Johnson assumed Chicago Public School. You assumed. Mayor Brandon Johnson assumed. What happens when you assume? You will make an ass out of you and me. Assumed CPS Chicago Public Schools would reimburse the city and choose to include the $175 million pension payment in both his 2024 and 2025 city budgets. But the city has yet to receive the payment from CPS, and it's one of the reasons why CPS CEO Pedro Martinez was fired. We would have had significant surplus had we received one or both of those, Jarowski told reporters. Because of those two items, we ended up with a deficit position and ended up using up the unassigned fund balance. Jarowski stressed that Chicago still has over $6 billion in cash, including long-term reserves generated by former Mayor Richard M. Daley to forego decades of revenue by privatizing Chicago parking meters and the Chicago Skyway Enterprise Enterprise and Tax Increment Financing TIF funds, and a total balance of $360 million. Interim Comptroller Mike Belske described the unassigned balance as the bottom of a waterfall, adding, "You have to look at all the categories of fund balance, not just unassigned." Last week, interim CPS CEO, again Chicago Public Schools CEO, Macklin King pegged, horrible choice of word, the CPS budget deficit at $730 million, hundreds of millions more than the one released by Martinez. That includes a disputed pension payment. There's going to be another protest. We've overcome a big hurdle with CPS. They're being realistic about what their actual budget gap is. And it does recognize this commitment, Budget Director Anita Guzman said. Downtown, Alderman Bill Conway said he remained worried about the city's financial outlook, even though city revenues are overperforming. Then why are we being taxed up the ass? by 78.7 million through the first 5 months of this year, and city spending is down by 79 million. Ending 2024 with an unassigned fund balance of zero still gives me great concern, as is the entire fiscal mess that we're facing, Conway said. Well, isn't that just special? Equally alarming to Conway is the fact that the disputed CPS pension payment was actually $289 million, and the mayor's office, without talking to anybody, let them take it down to $175 million, Conway said. It's an amazing... Hold on. It's amazing that he couldn't get the school board that he appointed a majority of to even cover the reduced portion. Monday's briefings were timed to coincide with the June 30th release of the comprehensive annual financial report by Lorote that doubles the city's audit. The mayor's budget team also released preliminary results of a consulting study that finds legalizing video gaming in Chicago is not worth pursuing. So in other words, gambling. Gambling is what's going to get us out of it. Yes, let's build a casino. Yes, the casino. A consultant hired by the Johnson administration has concluded that video gaming revenue would be normal at best, and legalizing those machines in Chicago bars and restaurants could actually end up costing the city money because of the impact it would have on slot machines at Bailey's temporary casino. The permanent casino is being built in the River West neighborhood. You know, I'm going to pause here for a second. I've actually seen designs of the casino, and while it looks nice, for those of you who actually been in a casino, you know what it really looks like. All right? It smells terrible. It's not all smiles and sunshines. And listen, it's okay to play cards or go out to slot machines, but gambling is an addiction, just like alcohol, drugs, anything else. It's a vice. And you see depression, desperation. It's not like a fun time. The house always wins. You know? The house always wins. I've been to casinos, okay? I've seen it. It's not going to save the city. It's going to royally screw over the city. Now I do want to play something else here too. This is from Flip Chicago Red, where people share and feel their experience about what's happening in their neighborhood. You know, it's 16 minutes, 54 seconds long, but I just wanted to play a little bit of it because Chicago's in a bind. Chicago is in a bind.
Hey, somebody without no social security not gonna ride around doing Uber right now. Ain't no way somebody without no social security number in the link office getting benefits. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm seeing all this. I'm from the land. Like,
how do you feel about Trump? Right? How do you feel about Trump?
Well, I want to fast forward just a little bit because there's some playing the
like their whole life since a child. I'm talking about like first grade. I knew this motherfucker. Uh-huh. They never had shit. Whole family been fucked up the whole time. I seen niggas get rich. I seen it.
I seen that. You right.
I seen with my own eyes.
Hey, Devontae. Nice looking gentleman, yes.
Outside of Chicago, immigration area. Uh-huh. So, good thing. I was speaking to this nice lady right here today. She asked me about opinions on certain things, politic-wise, and I was just giving her the insight on the person that's in the streets.
Okay.
So, basically, like, all the things you were just saying we need to do, all the assets and the jobs that we need for our community, yeah, all that's good and then. But it's going to come down to the race. Okay. Our race is fucked up. Okay. Because every time we get somebody that's a speaker or a leader that's going to speak for our race, what happens? It's some slick talking ass shit. Who you think you is? Some greaseball ass shit. Look at everybody that's in position that's black. They really been, when they got the chance to like be successful and have avenues to put people in place and position shit, they didn't do it. Even though I don't know why, it's in the genes to be. It's like it's fucked up. So all that's fine to Danny, but we gonna have to work in with ourselves, the race, because we gonna need the lesson. Because this should go all the way back to slavery from the outside people to the inside people. They been telling on each other, doing all type of shit. Mm-hmm. So if you go in our neighborhoods, any black neighborhood and it's outside, all you see is motherfucking Arabs and motherfucking, like you said, all that shit. You go right here in Little Village, you see motherfucking Jose Produce and some weird ass shit. Zarko tacos and some crazy ass shit. You see what I'm saying? You don't see Mama Ann soul food sitting around, none of that shit. You see what I'm saying? Why? Because at the end of the day, them Mexicans or whatever, however you want to call their own, but I'm keeping it in the ball. They is fucked up with all that shit, but they definitely people. Mm-hmm. The blacks not definitely people.
Unfortunately, when it comes down to Chicago, like I said, city is divided, heavily segregated, and heavily pushed away. Now, these politicians, there is no incentive for them to actually, help out their constituents or their people. It's not the first time we have seen residents in the Chicagoland area get screwed over, and especially on the south side of Chicago, west side of Chicago. 2027 is our next city election. 2027 is going to be an election year that's going to be a referendum on Mayor Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson, unfortunately, is the inheritor of the last years of Emanuel's administration and Lightfoot's administration. And unfortunately, as we have reported on this show, he kept people from Lightfoot and Emanuel's administration still part of his team. Unfortunately, under Brandon Johnson, things got worse. And unfortunately, with the aftermath of everything that's been happening these last 8 years, Brandon Johnson could very well be a sacrificial lamb to the Chicago political machine. It would be a miracle if he does somehow get reelected into office. There's a lot of resentment and anger towards his administration, not only towards the black community, but also from, you better believe it, every single district in Chicago. His polling is completely in the waters. And what Chicago is going to face off against is what New York City just went through. A huge who's who of everybody running for office. Everybody is going to be running for Chicago, from the top tier lawyers to businessmen, influencers, everyone else. It's going to be a run for the city office of the highest power. And only those that have the money can be able to succeed in this. But I want to remind everyone, and this goes out to my fellow third parties and independents who might be considering throwing their hat in the ring, and even to flip Chicago red. We do know how Chicago politics are played. You technically are running as an independent for the Chicago mayoral race, but then you got to put that D around your neck. This is going to be a very interesting election year to see who will be participating in the primary. Brandon Johnson has a lot to answer for. And unfortunately, every time he speaks, it builds more resentment and anger. How his administration has handled Chicago since the aftermath of Lightfoot is a case study of how you can be less popular than your predecessor. And as I said before, you got to be an all-star performer in being more hated than Lightfoot. How do you pull that off? I'm very curious to see how my fellow Chicagoans are going to be talking about this. I want to give a huge shout out to my good friend Nick Thompson, who has co-hosted the show. And also I plan on inviting him back on, Jamal Green as well, because you better believe that when it comes down to the 2027 city election, I think Chicago is going to give the New York City primary election and general election a run for its money. We'll see how the Democratic machine responds.